The Galactic Combat Academy had never seen a human before, at least not one like him. When the transport ship landed on the Academy's dust-covered platform, instructors gathered with curious eyes. The newest batch of recruits had arrived, tall, thin aliens from noble planets, all with shiny armor and glowing eyes. But one figure stood out. He walked down the ramp slowly, carrying no gear, no armor, no weapons, just a tired smile and a scar running from his cheek to his jaw. His name was Cole Draven. He was from Earth, classified as a deathworld by the Galactic Council, a place too dangerous, too wild, too brutal for most species to survive. Instructor Varnock, a four-eyed general from the planet Vexa, scoffed. "This is the human?" he said. "He looks, unarmed." Cole looked at Varnock and nodded politely. "Afternoon." That was it. No salute, no fear. The other recruits backed away as the instructors scanned his file. Earth's environment alone was a nightmare. Hostile creatures, violent weather, toxic plants. Most species wouldn't last an hour, but Cole had lived there all his life. Day 1 of training began with the standard survival test. Drop the recruits into the wastelands of Zarnok 7. Lava fields, bone-dry deserts, flesh-eating plants. Recruits were given a beacon and one ration pack. Cole didn't take the ration. As the drop pods fired from the sky, Varnock smirked. "Let's see how long the Deathworlder lasts." The first day passed. Most recruits triggered their beacons within hours, crying for extraction. 2 were already missing. 1 had a broken leg from a sand beast attack. But Cole? He hadn't activated his beacon. He hadn't even called for help. On the second day, the surveillance drones finally spotted him. He was roasting one of the local creatures over a fire, humming a tune and carving something into the ground. He had turned the bones of a Zarnok beast into armor, and he wore it like it was made for him. The instructor stared in silence. "He's adapting," Varnock whispered. By day 4, the test was over. Everyone had either failed or been rescued except Cole. He walked back to base on foot, dragging a wounded recruit over his shoulder. "Thought you might want him back," Cole said, dropping the unconscious alien at the instructor's feet. Varnock stared. "You crossed the Razor Cliffs alone?" Cole shrugged. "They looked sharp but manageable. Reminded me of home." The other recruits looked at him differently now. Whispers spread. Some called him a freak, others a survivor. But one thing was clear. This human was no ordinary being. Later that night, Instructor Varnock stood in the observation tower reviewing the footage. He watched Cole fight off a sand raptor with a broken stick in pure rage. No tactics, no alien tech, just brutal instinct and precision. "He didn't pass the test," Varnock said. Another instructor turned. He was the test. The training grounds on Ares Prime were known across the galaxy as the hardest place to survive. Recruits from over 50 species came here to prove their worth. The drills were brutal. The instructors, even worse. But today was different. Today, the Deathworlder was in class. Kraxon, a 4-armed Brumali, stood beside his fellow recruits as they stared at the human named Mason. The alien cadets whispered among themselves. "That's him. The one from Earth." "A Deathworld species? He won't last a day." Instructor Zur, a towering insectoid with steel wings, barked. "Combat gauntlet, begin." One by one, the recruits entered the obstacle zone. Plasma blasts, spinning blade traps, gravity shifts. Most recruits stumbled, barely surviving. Then came Mason's turn. He walked in casually. No armor, just a smirk. The crowd leaned forward. Boom! An explosion rocked the track. Smoke filled the air. When it cleared, Mason was jogging through the flames. He didn't flinch. A laser narrowly missed his face. He ducked without slowing. A giant drone charged him. Mason rolled under it, pulled 2 wires from its leg, and it collapsed. Kraxon's jaw dropped. What is this human?" "Instructor." Zur stared silent. His datapad showed Mason had completed the course in less than half the time. When Mason returned, he stretched and yawned. That's it? I thought this was supposed to be hard. The aliens were stunned. Whispers spread. Is this human joking? That was elite level, Zur growled. Tomorrow, hand to hand. We'll see if your kind can handle that. Mason smiled. Looking forward to it. The next morning, the combat arena was packed. Not just cadets, but instructors, engineers, and even high-ranking officers had come to watch. Everyone wanted to see how the human would survive hand-to-hand combat. Mason stood in the center, arms crossed, calm as ever. Around him, the alien recruits looked nervous, except one. Zethar, a reptilian warrior from the Core Empire, cracked his knuckles. He was a head taller than Mason and made of pure muscle. His people were born fighters. Instructor Zur has allowed full contact, Zethar hissed. Don't cry when I break something soft. Mason smiled. Only thing that'll break today is your ego. Gasps echoed from the crowd. Zur raised his claw. Begin! Zethar charged like a beast, claws out, fangs ready. Mason didn't flinch. He dodged left, let Zethar's claws fly past, then jabbed him once, straight to the gut. The alien stumbled. Laughter rippled through the humans watching remotely. Zethar roared and came again. He swung wildly. Mason ducked, rolled, and swept his leg. The mighty reptile crashed to the ground. Silence. Then, cheering. One by one, more aliens stepped into the ring. A four-armed giant from Brumal, a speedster from the Ixi system, a bone-armored warrior from Zenth. Each one fell, not because Mason hit harder, but because he moved smarter. Fast, precise, controlled. One alien whispered, "He fights like he's danced this 1,000 times." After his 6th win, Mason stood in the center of the ring. He wasn't even breathing hard. "I thought you were elite warriors," he called out. "Back home, we warm up with harder fights." The instructors were no longer angry. They were worried. Zur looked at his commander. "We may have underestimated humans." The commander nodded. "If this is how they train, what are they like in real war?" And Mason? He just grinned and walked off, as if nothing had happened. 2 days after Mason crushed the combat trials, strange whispers moved through the base. He beat Zethar. 6 wins, no damage. Just a human? The instructors didn't know what to do. Mason passed every test too easily. He didn't just survive, he excelled. So Command decided to test him again, but not with strength. This time, with weapons. Inside the Galactic armory, dozens of elite recruits stood ready. Each had their own tech: laser blades, plasma rifles, pulse cannons. Mason walked in holding nothing. One of the alien cadets laughed. "No gear? You plan to punch lasers?" Mason shrugged. "I brought something better." He reached into his belt and pulled out a worn metal object. It looked old, ugly, like a relic. Zur raised an eyebrow. "What is that?" "A knife," Mason said. "Steel from Earth." The aliens burst into laughter. "Primitive, that's a toy." But the laughs died quickly. Because when the trial began, Mason moved like a ghost. In close combat, he was unstoppable. He twisted around plasma blades, deflected rifle barrels, and disarmed enemies before they even fired. That little piece of sharpened steel danced in his hand like it was alive. One by one, the alien cadets dropped their weapons. Some from fear, some from respect. "He's using nothing but instinct," one observer whispered. "No tech, no targeting systems, just muscle and memory." In the control room, Commander Vael frowned. "What kind of deathworld teaches this?" Instructor Zur replied quietly. "One that doesn't forgive weakness." Later, when Mason cleaned the blood off his knife, an alien tech officer approached him. "That blade, it has no energy, no AI, why not use something advanced?" Mason looked him in the eyes. "Because tech can fail, muscles break, but the will to fight, that stays." And with that, he left the room, leaving behind silence and fear. The Galactic elite were starting to realize something they weren't ready for. This human didn't need help to be dangerous. He was the weapon. The Academy alarm screamed. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. Doors locked. Sirens echoed through every corridor. "This is not a drill," the speaker said. "Repeat, this is not a drill." Mason was in the training yard when it started. Alien cadets ran in panic. Instructors barked orders. Drones lifted into the sky. "What's going on?" Mason asked an officer. "Enemy fleet ambushed our outpost on Icarus 9, she said. "We're being deployed." "Deployed?" Mason raised an eyebrow. "I thought this was just training." "Not anymore," she said. "You're going to war, Deathworlder." They flew fast, inside a dark carrier ship with 30 alien soldiers, shaking with nerves. Mason sat quietly in the corner, sharpening his knife. "Are you seriously taking that into battle?" asked Zell, a lizard-like cadet. Mason nodded. "It's all I need. But they have cannons, drones, acid weapons." "Good," Mason said. "Let them bring everything." The ship landed with a heavy thud. The door dropped open and chaos exploded. Smoke, laser fire, screams. The air smelled like fire and metal. Alien cadets froze. Some panicked. Some dropped their weapons. Their training hadn't prepared them for this. But Mason didn't freeze. He ran into the storm like it was nothing. A hostile drone buzzed overhead. He shot it down with one clean shot from a stolen plasma rifle. An acid cannon fired. He dodged, rolled, and used the wreckage of a fallen vehicle as cover. Then he saw 3 cadets cornered behind debris, too scared to move. Without hesitation, Mason charged in. He tossed a grenade, slammed a hostile to the ground, pulled one of the cadets up by the collar. "Move!" he shouted. "You want to live? Then fight." The cadets obeyed. Something in Mason's voice broke through their fear. He became their unofficial commander. Back at HQ, command watched through helmet cams. "What's that human doing?" one general asked. "He's not following orders," another said. "No," Commander Vale replied, eyes wide. "He's saving lives." In just 1 hour, the enemy was pushed back. When the battle ended, Mason stood in the middle of the field, his armor scorched, arms bleeding, blade in hand. Around him, dozens of alien cadets stood tall, alive. Because of him, a dropship landed near him. Instructor Zur stepped out. "You disobeyed combat formation." Mason shrugged. "I got the job done. You inspired your squad." "I didn't come to inspire," Mason said. "I came to survive." Zur looked at the field, then back at Mason. "And that's why they follow you." From that day, the Alien Academy started whispering a new title, the Soldier from Hell. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was leading. Mason sat alone in the debriefing room. Lights were low. His armor was still scorched from battle. He had saved lives, won a real war, yet something felt wrong, too easy. The door opened. Commander Vale walked in, followed by 2 high-ranking officers with no name tags. "Mason," Vale said coldly, "you're being reassigned." "Reassigned?" Mason stood up. "To where?" "To the silent zone," said the taller officer. "No comms, no backup. You'll lead a recon team." Mason narrowed his eyes. "Sounds like a suicide mission." Vale's face didn't change. "You're the only one who can survive it. They dropped him on a dead planet. No cities, no life. Just black rock, deep fog, and static-filled skies. He had a squad of 5 alien cadets. None had seen real combat except Mason. "Stay close," he said. "Don't trust anything. If you hear a voice in your head, run." They moved through twisted rock valleys. Mason's instincts screamed danger, but the scanners showed nothing. Then, the ground cracked. Something huge rose from below. A machine. But not alien. Not human. Something ancient. It had no visible weapons. No heat signature, but the moment it looked at them, 2 cadets dropped dead. "Retreat!" Mason yelled. Too late. A pulse wave hit them, knocking them back. Mason's ears rang. One cadet screamed and vanished. Just gone. No trace. This isn't a recon mission, Mason muttered. This is a test. The last surviving cadet, Taka, looked at him with wide eyes. A test? They sent us here to see if I'd die. Back at the academy, Vial watched in silence. He's still alive, an officer said. 3 cadets, gone. The rest vanished. Another officer frowned. We need to increase the difficulty. Vial didn't answer. He was watching Mason and smiling. On the dead planet, Mason dragged Taka behind a ridge. I've seen traps before, Mason whispered. But this one's special. It's watching us, studying. Taka trembled. How do we fight something like that? We don't. Mason took a flare from his belt. Then he did something no alien would ever do. He ran toward the machine. Straight. Into its sensors. The machine targeted him instantly, but Mason moved too fast. He leapt, rolled through the flare into the air, and the flare exploded, blinding the field for 3 seconds. That's all he needed. He slammed a charge onto the machine's back. Boom, smoke, metal flying, and then silence. The machine collapsed. Shaking the ground as it fell, Mason stood there, breathing hard. Taka peeked out. You killed it? No, Mason said. I passed the test. A signal blinked in his visor. Extraction inbound. Later, aboard the extraction ship, Taka looked at him in awe. You're not just a soldier, he said. You're something else. Mason didn't smile. They tried to break me. They failed. Back at the academy, Vial watched the replay again. Mason didn't just survive, he said. He learned. Another officer asked, So what do we do now? Vial turned toward the Galactic Council screen. We send him where even the galaxy fears to look. The galaxy had rules. There were places even warlords wouldn't go. Zone 13 was one of them. No maps, no patrols. Only whispers about a war so ancient, even the stars had forgotten. But Mason was going there, alone. Commander Vial watched. As Mason's dropship vanished into the dark clouds of Zone 13, an aide beside him asked, Do you think he'll survive this? Vial's voice was flat. If he does, everything will change. The moment Mason stepped out of the ship, his suit sensors screamed. Radiation, pressure, energy fields that didn't match known science. But Mason didn't stop. The terrain was broken. Craters miles wide, black glass where firestorms had once burned. Then he saw it. A battlefield frozen in time. Alien corpses. Human bones. Machines half buried in ash. And above it all, floating silently, a black monolith the size of a city. It pulsed, like it was alive. Mason moved closer, his visor flickered. Voices crackled through the static. Help. Help us. He blinked. The battlefield changed. Suddenly he was standing in the middle of a war. Blaster fire. Screams. Ships crashing overhead. But nothing touched him. It was a memory. Burned into the land itself. Mason clenched his fists. What happened here? The answer came as a shadow. A being stepped from the monolith, not alien, not machine, something older. Its voice echoed in Mason's head. You are not meant to be here. Mason didn't back down. I go where I need to. You are human. A deathworlder. That title carries weight. Then let's test it. The being raised a hand. The ground exploded beneath Mason's feet, but he rolled, dodged, and threw a grenade. The being vanished, reappeared behind him. Good, it whispered. You adapt. You survive. That is why we fear your kind. Back on the space station, all feeds had gone dark. No signal from Mason for 10 minutes. Vial looked tense. If he's gone and we lost the only one who could have changed everything. But then, a ping, video returned, and what they saw shook the room. Mason stood atop the black monolith. Behind him, the being was gone. destroyed. In his hand was a glowing artifact, pulsing like a heartbeat. He looked straight at the camera. "You wanted to test me," he said. "Well, now I've seen what you've been hiding." He raised the artifact. "This thing, it holds power from the First War, the one you tried to bury." He smiled, cold and confident. "Maybe next time, you'll think twice before underestimating a deathworlder." The feed cut out. Silence filled the room. Vale leaned back. "He found it, the ancient weapon. He wasn't supposed to." One officer whispered, "What happens now?" Vale stood slowly. "Now," he said, "now the galaxy gets reminded why humanity was never meant to be contained.